Hello, America. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from the nation's capital and the WiredToFishCoffee.com studios. You know this, Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. It has a fantastic coffee blends. My favorite, the medium roast for the morning. But they also have a dark roast, now a decaf roast, very popular. Go check them out at WiredToFishCoffee.com. You can get a fantastic 10% discount on all of their great coffee by using the code JUSTNEWS at checkout, or put your camera at that QR code. That's another way to do it. All right, we've got some big breaking news. You're going to get it here first because you're Real America's Voice fans and you watch Just the News. Earlier today, the FBI under Kash Patel turned over to Congress 700 pages of Crossfire Hurricane documents, unredacted and declassified. These are the documents President Trump intended to be released in January 2021, but the FBI scooped them up, kept them from going to public release. We sued, tried to fight for them. Donald Trump came back into office and he released them a second time. And today they got to Congress, and then they ended up in the hands of Just the News. And in just an hour, you're going to see our first story. I'm going to give you a timetable, 7 p.m. Our first story is going to come out on justthenews.com. At 8 p.m., we're going to give all the documents one by one and post them onto the website, so you have a sort of Wikimedia wiki to go look through the documents yourself. You find some good stories, let us know at Just the News, and we'll go pursue them. We're going to tell you about one right now, perhaps the most important thing in the documents that we found early on. One of the two informants that were used by the FBI to spy or to snitch on Donald Trump and his campaign was named Stefan Halper. He's not the most famous. Christopher Steele, the guy that wrote the dossier, he's the most famous. But Stefan Halper was used quite a bit by the FBI. In fact, he was used for 3 decades by the FBI, and it turns out snitching is a pretty lucrative profession. He got paid nearly $1.2 million by the FBI to be a confidential human source from the early 1990s to 2017. The last of those payments, $70,000 for his work snitching on the Trump campaign and the Crossfire Hurricane early investigation. Now, why? What are we going to tell you about it? It turns out that he got that money and he kept being used by the FBI and he kept being validated as reliable, even though the FBI detected he had given them an inaccurate, false, or disprovable story. What is it? He's the guy that told the FBI that Mike Flynn, soon to be Donald Trump's national security advisor in the fall of 2016, back in 2014, had left a conference, an overseas conference, while he was a 3-star general and the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, alone with a Russian woman. Now, the FBI determined that was implausible and inaccurate. In fact, President Mike Flynn's own security detail would never have left him alone. He was a 3-star general and the head of the intelligence agency. He was always guarded by people. They determined it was unreliable, not true, inaccurate, not plausible. But guess what? They kept using him to keep digging further and further into people like George Papadopoulos and Carter Page and others. We're going to get all this up for you to read. We want your own eyes on it. You look at it, you see it at justthenews.com, 7 p.m. Once we get off the show, the first story will be up. There'll be all the documents listed in chronological order or by titles. You can go do your own sleuthing tonight. We'll give you a homework assignment. All right, great time to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, for more headlines. Amanda, I know you've been watching a lot of other things. A good day for President Trump, Mike Johnson, on Capitol Hill, I guess, right?
Indeed, yes. And a lot happened on Capitol Hill before we even started our show. First, the budget resolution narrowly passed the House with a final vote of 216 to 214. There was a bit of infighting on the Republican side of the aisle about the bill and its fiscal policy. And ultimately, Congressman Thomas Massie and Congresswoman Victoria Spartz voted against it. Now, it's a big deal that it passed, though, because it allows the rest of President Trump's legislative agenda to go forward and avoid a Senate filibuster by the Democrats. Now, what's next is President Trump's one big, beautiful bill, and Speaker Mike Johnson addressed that after the resolution passed. Check it out.
The reason we call it the One Big Beautiful Bill, everybody in this crowd of journalists knows that all the components that will be in that. We're talking about ensuring that the border is secure, having the resources that are necessary to do that. We're talking about getting the American economy going again by reducing regulations. We're talking about restoring peace through strength and making sure we have the measures in place to properly fund those priorities. We have a lot of things, American energy dominance, all the components that will make things better for Americans, drive down the cost of living, and get our economy really going again.
So now is when the real work begins, what I call robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's basically what you're doing with this framework, but this is how President Trump's agenda will ultimately get passed, and we're going to be with you reporting on it every step of the way. But President Trump also addressed sanctuary cities earlier today, teasing that he might be getting ready to withdraw federal funding from jurisdictions that refuse to cooperate with his immigration enforcement policies. He posted this on Truth Social, writing, "No more sanctuary cities. They protect the criminals, not the victims. They are disgracing our country and are being mocked all over the world, working on papers to withhold all federal funding for any city or state that allows these death traps to exist." John, a lot happening today, but we have more on tonight's show.
Yeah, we're going to do. In fact, we'll be talking to one of the members who came through for President Trump and Mike Johnson at the very end, Ralph Norman. He'll join us in a second block. You know, we thought with breaking this big story on the Crossfire Hurricane documents finally seeing the light of day 8 years too late, perhaps, for most of us, we turned to one of the most powerful members of Congress, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, who knows an awful lot about it. We caught up with Jim Jordan on the phone while he was going through all those votes. Take a listen to what he had to tell us. All right, joining us now, the man whose committee received those documents in the last 24 hours, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan. Congressman, good to have you on, sir.
Good to be with you, John. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you, sir. You fought to get these documents. Does it feel satisfying to know the FBI is finally turning over what you've been seeking for, well, like 8 years, maybe?
Yeah. I remember. You think about that, John. I remember when we first talked about this 8 years ago, whole thing, and you were working your tail off, and there was a handful of us in the Congress who said this stuff doesn't make sense, this Russia collusion baloney that they put together. So, yeah, it's good to get the documents. And I will say this. It is truly night and day, the treatment and the response we get from Director Patel, Attorney General Bondi, compared to what we got, or what we didn't get, I should say, probably better, from Chris Wray and Merrick Garland. So I really do appreciate the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General Blanche, of course, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at the FBI. The response we're getting, we sent them 7 subpoenas on a host of other issues that happened during the Biden administration. And they're getting us information with those subpoenas where we're trying to clear up some of these other issues. But this was good to get this information today. And more importantly, to get it to folks like you who can dig through it as only journalists can and highlight some of the things that you're finding.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the evolution of this story has been incredible, and we are now finally getting to the place, thanks to folks like you and John Solomon, we're finally getting to the place where people realize what went haywire, what was true and not true. The Democrats on your committee, as you guys are examining these documents and seeking out, subpoenaing documents, are you finding that they are as willing as you are to take a good look and maybe have a little bit of come to Jesus moments where they say, man, we didn't realize this?
We have not seen that yet. I mean, you know, you can always hope. You can always hope that's the case. But I always like to start with, remember the basics here. You had a presidential campaign, the Clinton campaign, who had hired a law firm. The law firm then went and hired Fusion GPS, a public relations firm, who then went and hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who then went out and put together a false document, who then the FBI, Jim Comey, used the false document as the basis to get warrants to go spy on President Trump's campaign. That, to my knowledge, has never happened in American history, but it did. And it was all driven by money from the other campaign and lies to run the opposing campaign, you know, to run a spy operation on the opposing campaign. And now what we have in this release is we have some of the 302s. We have the 1023s. The 302s are where the Mueller FBI, though, during the Mueller investigation, the special counsel interviewed Christopher Steele. So we can look exactly what was said there. Even though we've gotten a lot of that information in the Mueller report and everything else, you actually have the 302. And then you have the 1023s where Steele's handler was talking with Steele and reporting that information, which we know was garbage, but you actually have those documents. So we think that's something new that we've gotten here in this release from Director Patel.
Sir, you're working on a continuing pattern of this. So in the 16, the Democratic campaign, 6 the FBI and their opponent, Donald Trump. In 2021, It's the White House, Joe Biden's White House, his general counsel's office, that's sicking the FBI and even grabbing President Trump's old phone and turning it over with executive privilege claims and others, notwithstanding, to the FBI to sicken on him again. It seems like the cycle just kept going.
Yeah, it did. I mean, this is lawfare. This is politics jumping into our justice system, which is not supposed to happen. I mean, and of course, it could sort of culminate in the raid on his home, and then the four, at least from the two indictments from Jack Smith, and I think you almost have to lump in even though they're state cases, the Alvin Bragg and Fonnie Willis. It's all part of this effort. We know Nathan Wade was coming here and talking with people in Washington related to the investigation there in Fulton County, Georgia. So yeah, it's all part of this lawfare, using the law to go against your political opponents. But the sort of start of it was exactly what you uncovered way back when the Clinton campaign, Perkins Coie, Fusion GPS, then Christopher Steele putting together the dossier.
It's just amazing.
Sir, I want to ask you about something that has been a hot topic ever since President Trump was reelected in the second term, and that is judicial reform. The No Rogue Rulings Act passed the House. That is absolutely significant for reining in these inferior courts. What do you anticipate will happen in the Senate?
Well, let's hope they pass it because, remember, even Justice Kagan had said that this is a problem, that you can't have a district judge acting like the President of the United States and issuing an injunction that applies nationwide. So the bill we passed yesterday said the injunction issued by one of these 677 federal district judges should apply to the parties in the case in that respective jurisdiction. I hope that you see the Senate take it up. My guess is they probably won't. But this is good. And then you couple that action with us looking to use the appropriations process to impact some of these rogue judges, and of course our oversight ability, which we had a hearing a week ago where Speaker Gingrich testified, just did an amazing job. I think all that is making a difference, and we saw the Supreme Court issue in two decisions in the last 4 days that were in favor of President Trump and him being able to, as the head of the executive branch, do what he told the voters he was going to do.
Yeah, so important. The courts are starting to roll it back. Sir, you released, along with two other committee chairmen last week, a bombshell report on Act Blue, the fundraising platform the Democrats have raised $2 billion on its small donations. I understand you've been able to look at some of the more of the suspicious activity reports. Are you pretty convinced that foreign money was flowing through that system?
Don't know yet, but we do know that there's, the old cliche where there's smoke, there may be fire, because you've had 7 people leave Act Blue. You have one guy, I think, who was one of the key people at Act Blue who is still there, but somehow not being given access to his emails. We have sent several letters asking for documents and the chance to talk to these 7 individuals who've been dismissed or left Act Blue. And the handful of documents we've seen that were in our interim report indicate that fraud just wasn't a concern for them. It was basically like, oh, let's get the money in and we'll kind of figure out ways we can do fraud, but don't worry about it too much. That was sort of just this attitude that kind of comes through with what the limited number of documents we've been able to review thus far. And of course, you go back to what was happening in the campaign. You literally had first-time candidates that nobody had ever heard of running for a congressional seat who were raising $2 and $3 million a quarter. I mean, it was unprecedented how this was happening. And when you don't have the proper fraud, detection and accountability system in place, who knows where this money was coming from? So do we know for sure it was coming from foreign sources? We don't, but we're highly suspicious.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm sure, is you're going to get to the bottom of it. The work you have done in the last 7-8 years is the best of the oversight work Congress does. We're so lucky to have you on the show on a really busy day. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for all your good work. Take care, guys. Have a great Easter.
Thank you, sir. You too. Happy Easter. Wow, a lot of nuggets in there, Amanda. One thing that caught my ear, Jim Jordan saying that they're going to use the appropriations process possibly to rein in wayward judges. That's something we've never heard before. We're going to check into that and see what that is. Also, some hints of what might be coming ahead in the Act Blue investigation, which could be the newest area of inquiry for the Congress and that large fundraising platform. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break in a second. We're going to come back with Congressman Ralph Norman, who was right in the middle of that drama on whether that budget blueprint would pass Congress. When you go to the Justice News site, 2 quick warnings for you. You're going to see that the FBI released these documents with still some redactions. They're not fully unredacted, and you can notice one thing is missing from them. That is the fourth FISA, the final FISA warrant that was used to approve another 3 months of President Trump being monitored and his team being monitored. We're pressing to get those, but they're not in this first batch. Something to think about when you go to commercial break. All right, Congressman Ralph Norman right after these messages. Hey folks, did you know that other seniors group, AARP, has promoted Drag Queen Story Hour events? Really, it's true. And it's just one example of their steady shift towards a progressive political agenda. They supported Obamacare, opposed the Trump tax cuts, and they continue to align with policies that many everyday Americans simply don't agree with. That's why more and more people are turning to AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. It's a conservative alternative to AARP. AMAC is working hard to protect Social Security, fight for election integrity, and promote the constitutional and common sense values that matter to you and me. And it's not just for seniors. Anyone can join regardless of age. Right now, AMAC is offering an exclusive deal, a 5-year membership. That's what I am. I've joined for 5 years for just $31. That's 47% off the regular rate of $60. But this special offer ends April 30th, so hurry up, go check it out. Your dues don't go to woke causes. They go towards supporting AMAC's advocacy work in Washington and across the country. To learn more and join today, visit amac.us/justnews. That's AMAC, AMAC.us/justnews.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. The House passed the budget resolution earlier today, a very skinny 216 to 214 vote, but what is in the bill that we needed? Joining us now to talk about all that it has, as well as the SAVE Act, which was also passed earlier today, very important. South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman. Congressman, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here, sir.
Well, honored to be with you, Amanda. Thank you.
All right, sir. I know that you initially were reticent to support this bill. It did not have the level of cuts that you wanted to see, but you were made promises. Tell us about those promises and how sure you are that those promises will be kept.
Well, first of all, it was a great day for this country. The fact that we were able to do it, slim margin, it was. But the fact that you had the Speaker of the House, you had the Majority Leader in the Senate, and you had the President of the United States who publicly came out $1.5 trillion cuts. We had a secure understanding that we're not going to spend more money than we make, which for the upcoming year, which is really a feat for Congress, which we really haven't happened in 30 plus years. And it didn't come without a lot of meetings. We were up till 11 o'clock last night. It was a 48-hour, I guess, just discussion on making sure this wasn't smoke and mirrors. And the fact that, people came together at the last minute. You had 30 hard no's. I was one of them. A lot of us had the same strong opinion. We weren't sent to Congress to bankrupt the country. And now that the real work will begin and that the committees will have to come up with specific cuts, we gave to the press what was signed this morning by the Speaker as far as committing to it, as well as the White House. And Donald Trump played a big part in this. He was in the talks really for the last 2 to 3 days. And, it's just a new day in this country. Do we have a long way to go? Yeah. $36 trillion is a high margin of debt. It comes out to $477,000 per child that we burdened them with. But, you start with the first step, and I think this is the first step. SAVE Act, verifying that you are who you are. You have to appear in person. You have to give valid IDs. And all this came about, Amanda, because of the Biden administration letting 15 million people in this country and giving them Social Security numbers and driver's licenses. And, it was a day of reckoning that I'm glad came. We are not getting any Democrat support on really anything of substance. So the momentum will be there with us, and we've got to carry it through, and I think we will.
Sir, you always are careful to check the details in these bills, and there's always a demagoguery that comes when you're trying to cut government. Oh, they're going to put Social Security at risk. They're going to put Medicare at risk. You look at the details. Anything in here that cuts Social Security or Medicare benefits?
Absolutely not, John. I'm in the Rules Committee, and they keep bringing that
I
up.
know.
There's no way in reconciliation that you can cut Social Security.
Yep.
Medicaid, we're going to cut the fraud, waste, and abuse, and the Democrats just want to do that. Do not want to do that. Look at the outcry over Elon Musk, who is donating his time, not charging anything, and Elon Musk can't pass any law or can't cut any program, but what he's doing is giving the Americans a front row seat to how our tax dollars are being spent. And the Democrats are fighting it. That's why they're burning the Teslas on the lots and the protests, but it's not working. 77 million people voted for Donald Trump because they wanted security. They knew something wasn't right with the country, and it's not going to work. But absolutely, we're not cutting Social Security. We're not cutting Medicaid benefits. Are we going to make sure that you're able-bodied? And if you're on the Medicaid rolls, that it's honest enrollee and something that people, if you can go to work, you shouldn't be getting a government handout, and that's the bottom line on it.
Yeah, if you're genuinely receiving government assistance, you're not going to feel a change. Sir, you were made promises that the spending cuts will be there. Where do you anticipate the biggest chunks of those will come from?
Well, you've got energy and commerce. We began with a Senate bill that only said they would cut $4 billion with the B dollars. We had in our initial reconciliation package had a floor of 1.4 trillion of cuts, of actual cuts, and then with a ambition to cut 2 trillion. And we've been dealing with the Senate. They are actually saying they can do more than the 1.5, which is great. But for your listeners, we're going from 4 billion and then jumping up to 1.5 and then even more. Now, it's not going to be easy, and we've let it be known to leadership that as we go through the process and go through the 12 appropriation bills, from Energy and Commerce to the Budget Committee, to the Ag Committee, and to the Ways and Means Committee, it's going to take a lot of programs that are going to be shaved, and you're going to hear a hue and outcry. But it's programs that, one, have been identified by DOGE, and others are just duplicative programs that we're going to put a spotlight on and let the American people know. And I think we'll make it happen with at least a trillion and a half, and probably 2 to 3.
Wow, that is a big number. That's historic. Listen, all this is historic because nobody's taken in the last 25 years any effort, not even a tiny scalpel to the budget. So this is such a remarkable moment. So I want to turn to a public safety issue here in the nation's capital. We had the tragic crash above the skies of Washington, D.C. over Reagan Airport in January. 2 or 3 harrowing misses since then. And then today, a collision or a wing clip on the tarmac at the airport today, where members of Congress wanted the plane, and you also had a fight in the middle of the control tower recently that required police intervention. It feels like this airport is blinking red with danger and concern. And it doesn't seem like there's enough concern in Washington to really address it. Do you think it's time for Congress to step in?
It really is. And John, I land from Charlotte to D.C. The closest one is Reagan.
Right.
Reagan International Airport. I land there, and the layout of the airport, and any air traffic controller or pilot will tell you, it's a short runway. Yeah. The minute they land, they hit the flaps, and it's almost, you've got to have your seatbelt to avoid going forward, because it's an immediate stop. I think when Vice President Pence was there years ago, that slid off the runway with ice. It's short. And what happened today doesn't surprise me. I happened to get a call from another congressman and say that there's a group from New York that were on the plane, and that they clipped it. It's just tight quarters there, not just for the pilots, but the whole airport is just close. And does it surprise me? No. Does it? I think I've been on planes where if the wind is high, they have to take back off because they don't have the runway to land safely. And it's a concern. It's busy, and I think Congress will address it. And I think the officials there know the problem they have and will hopefully deal with it.
Yeah. Listen, I put my husband on a plane at noon today. That incident was a little too close for comfort as far as I'm concerned. But you're right, with the size of that airport, I think that seems things at least have to be rejiggered. Congressman Ralph Norman, representing the beautiful and great state of South Carolina. Thanks so much for being here, sir. Thanks for making time for us.
My pleasure. Thank y'all. Bye.
Thank you, sir. All right, everybody. Coming up, Vice President of the Government Accountability Institute, Eric Eggers. He's going to be here to discuss more about those declassified Crossfire hurricane documents. Stay with us.
Hey folks, let's admit it, we're all human, right? I don't always eat healthy. You don't always eat healthy. That's why doctors created Field of Greens. A delicious glass of Field of Greens daily is like nutritional armor for your body. Each fruit and vegetable was doctor selected for a specific health benefit. There's a heart health group, lungs and kidney groups, metabolism, even healthy weight. Now, I love the energy I get with Field of Greens every time I have a shake in the morning, but most all, I love the confidence that I get. Even if I have a cheat day, I can enjoy it guilt-free because I'm on Field of Greens. It's the nutrition my body needs daily. And only Field of Greens makes this better health promise. Your doctor's going to notice your improved health like mine did, or you get your money back. Let me get you started with my special discount. I've got you 20% off your first order. Here's how you do it. Just use the promo code JUSTNEWS at fieldofgreens.com. That's the promo code JUSTNEWS at fieldofgreens.com. Welcome back, America. We're going to stay on the story that we had at the top of the show, the new Russia collusion documents out. Stories coming up on Just the News in about 30 minutes, a little bit less than that. And then all the documents will be available to everyone at 8 o'clock tonight. We're really excited. It's a quick reminder, a little history lesson for those who've read my book with Seamus Bernard, Fallout, that the whole idea to come up with a Russian collusion story and hang that shingle on Donald Trump's house during the 2016 campaign came because the Hillary Clinton campaign realized that the Clinton cash story that our good friend Peter Schweizer wrote, that the Clintons and the Obama administration had made lots of money off of Russia during the alleged reset with Russia before Russia invaded Ukraine, that was hurting her campaign, so they needed to find something, well, to defend against it. That revelation came because of the great work of the Government Accountability Institute that Peter started. And joining us now is the Vice President of the Government Accountability Institute, our good friend Eric Eggers. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks. It's an excellent day. It's an exciting day, thanks largely to the work that you have continued to do. So thank you and Just the News for all the work you've done to try to expose just how deep the effort to undermine the Trump presidency, both 1 and 2, go.
Yeah, it's so important. And, Peter and the great team at JEA, they really found the first original story. Democrats today say they're all against Russia, Russia, Russia. But in 2009, they were the Russia lovers. They were resetting. They were taking $500,000 speech fees. They had John Podesta's company getting Russian backing. Everybody was making out great with Russia until it invaded Ukraine. If it weren't for GAI and Peter Schweizer, we probably wouldn't have known that part of the story.
We wouldn't know that part of the story. We wouldn't know the words like Skolkovo, which is basically Russia's effort to create their own Silicon Valley, which, as you noted, paid companies that brought on John Podesta. And so ultimately what happened is this reporting was so far-reaching. And, I traveled to Haiti as part of the research team for Clinton Cash and talked about how Hillary's brother made money off of a Haitian gold mine. I mean, the Clintons were so shameless, John. Making money in Haiti and in Russia. Only the Clintons have that far-reaching tentacles of basically a global ATM. But they realized, hey, we have a real problem. And so what they did is they used their campaign attorney, Mark Elias, who is his own walking scandal machine. And, they hired Fusion GPS, and they fabricate this whole Russian narrative. And then that Russian narrative was used to attempt to deny Donald Trump the 2016 election, and then, of course, successfully was used to deny him the 2020 election because, as we now know, thanks to the reporting about an FBI gag order, they said, oh, this is Russian disinformation. So this Russian story has stuck with Trump campaign, but because of your work and the work that we've done here at the Government Accountability Institute, we now know it's totally fabricated.
Eric, I want to ask you, we were talking at the top of the show about Stefan Halper and his role as a confidential human source and what certainly appears to be either being egregiously wrong or lying about General Flynn. What motivation would the FBI have to keep someone like that on the payroll, to continue using them to glean information, to glean sourcing from investigations? Why would they keep someone like that?
Yeah, I think 3 letters, TDS, and it's Trump derangement syndrome. Clearly, it doesn't matter if the information's correct. I mean, what is the ultimate story and the lesson from the Russiagate fiasco? It doesn't matter if the information's true if we like the meaning that it imparts and we like the impact it has politically. So the fact that this guy's making $1.8 million, even though he's clearly not telling the truth, I mean, look at some of the information we now know because of the work that's been done in the Hunter Biden investigation. They overlooked whistleblowers and testimony. People are saying, look, I was on the phone with Hunter Biden and Ukrainian executives who said Joe Biden wanted to be bribed, and that information was overlooked. Meanwhile, people like this are straight taking cash from U.S. intelligence officials despite a track record of dishonesty or inaccuracy at best. It just speaks to how deep-seated the deep state effort to block a Trump presidency and candidacy was.
Yeah, such a great point. And it also shows how lucrative that snitching for the government, being a confidential human source or informant, as we call them, can be. $1.2 million going back to 1991, 70 or 80 grand just to do some conversations for the FBI in 2016 and 17 related to Russia collusion. You get this sense that they know there was a problem with Stefan Halper's story allegation. You might have been wrong, might not have been, but normally that becomes a reliability issue. Normally there's a process called the validation process that goes back and decides, should we keep using a guy like this? That requires the input that you know that he didn't tell an accurate story. But when you go through the validation reports that have been released here, Eric, there's no mention of the fact that he had a problem with the story, and they just keep passing him down the line for more informing. Seems like confidential human sources are still a weak spot for the FBI.
Yeah, I guess the information is only as good as the accuracy of the people that are relaying it. No, you're absolutely right. This is a big problem for the FBI. It's one of the reasons why I think your book with Seamus was so important. And I think that, look, we've now seen subsequent emails come out and say, you have FBI officials, as you well know, say, look, we'll do anything to essentially stop Donald Trump. We excuse behavior as long as we deem the political impact to be correct. Remember, just going back to Clinton Cash for a second, the reporting we had on Hillary Clinton's relationship with Russia wasn't just stuff that was in that book. That information was given to the New York Times, the Washington Post, Bloomberg, ABC News. Those are legitimate mainstream outlets, and they all built upon it and independently reported on it. And then only after Donald Trump was elected, partly because of the information in Clinton Cash, did all of those mainstream news outlets essentially do a public mea culpa, a gnashing of teeth, a wearing of sackcloth, and said, I can't believe we were used by this duplicitous Government Accountability Institute, even though the information that we reported was absolutely correct, unlike the information of these confidential informants. But because the net effect of the information was undesirable politically, we were shunned. Meanwhile, fraudulent FBI informants are elevated. Just speaks to how broken the economy from an information and political standpoint is in our intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
Eric, I would love to give the FBI the benefit of the doubt, but the fact remains that Joe Biden was in office up until January, and Christopher Wray was the head of the FBI even when Trump was in office, and someone who I don't think was parallel with President Trump's agenda for the first term. I want to ask you about what came from these documents and what was happening maybe for the last 4 years, because there are a lot of opportunities in 4 years to conceal things that, you know, if you're worried that something might become disclosed to the American people.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is maybe they were too busy concealing something else, right? Maybe they were too busy concealing the fact that Joe Biden was suffering from a historically unprecedented cognitive decline, and they worked hand in hand with those same mainstream media outlets to conceal what, in my opinion, is the greatest scandal in American political history, because not only did Donald Trump give orders that this information should have been declassified well earlier in his presidential term, they even gave those orders as he was leaving the White House in 2021, and that information was delayed, obfuscated. Merrick Garland did everything he could to prevent this information from coming out. Thank God for Kash Patel, thank God for Donald Trump, that we now can take a deep look at just how broken and flawed the people who are sworn to protect our country are. And it just speaks to, John, I was talking to you about this during the break, I think the best thing about the Trump presidency is how fundamentally different the conversations we're having are. We can now have an honest conversation about, well, wait a minute, how dishonest of brokers were the people that work in the FBI? Hey, wait a minute, How wrong and wasteful and abusive and fraudulent is the spending in every program that our taxpayers pay for, from USAID to the Department of Energy and everything else? And we're seeing those same conversations happen now throughout even things like tariff. Hey, wait a minute, is it really okay for our economy to be taken for granted, exploited, and abused by Europe and China and everyone else when Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama all wanted to hold China to account when somebody else is president? So we can now have the conversations that are in America's best interest, and this intelligence one, I think, is right near the top of the list.
Eric, real quickly, I only got about a minute left. You've done some great work on the infiltration of the Communist Chinese Party all across America, including in Minnesota. Just a quick run on that.
The work that we've done here, we have a series about the Communist Party China ties to Minnesota. John, the point I've made is, when you replace Joe Biden, who obviously had extensive ties through his son Hunter with the Chinese Communist Party to the tune of $1.5 billion joint venture, and you replace him with somebody who got even closer ties in terms of Tim Walz, the fact that China's operating secret police stations in Minneapolis, like I think a block and a half away from the state capitol, maybe 10 minutes away, it just shows that we dodged a bullet. Not only is Donald Trump not a Chinese communist sympathizer like Tim Walz was in Minnesota, but he's actually doing the opposite. He's putting his thumb on the scale in the favor of the American people. This would not have happened in a Harris-Walz presidency.
Such a great point. Eric, thank you for all the great work you, Peter, Seamus, and the rest of the Government Accountability Institute every day. It is one of the greatest journalism institutions I've ever had a chance to work with. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, John, as the kids say, game recognizes game. It's great to be with you.
I like that, Eric. We'll play some more game next time you come on. That was awesome. All right, folks, coming up next, we'll tell you about one of the fastest rising crimes in America and what you can do to protect yourself right after these messages.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. We wanted to highlight something that is one of the fastest growing crimes in America, home title theft, or as the FBI calls it, house stealing. And who better to break down how law enforcement deals with the problem than former FBI agent Art Fitzenmeyer. Art, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be here. I love your entree music. When it starts, it tells you something special is about to happen.
That's right. It gets me amped up. That's why we picked it. We love it. Art, I remember the statistics. I don't remember them exactly, so I would love for you to rehash those with us as far as the increase in this crime.
Well, a number of things to consider. Number one is the statistics themselves are terribly misleading and grossly underreported, because most of the title theft activities actually is somebody who knows the actual owner at the time of the property. Now, lots of times it's a relative who will take the title to a property that belongs to an elderly relative. And then when they die, then they, by default, end up as the owner of the property. So you don't have a lot of the crime that would attract the attention of police. They would say, look, this is a family matter, and so you're going to have to get a lawyer and solve it. But when you have a cyber thief do this, that's the nastiest part of it all, because you don't know who they are. And once they issue that first check, they're offshore. That money's offshore before the ink dries on the check, quite frankly. And you have no way of knowing who did it or where your money went. And that means you have only one option left. And that is you have to hire an attorney and get a judge to declare that loan that the lender wants back, by the way. The lender will take you to court to try to get the judge allow the lender to sell your house and get the money back that they lent on the equity in your home. It's called foreclosure, and it's a very ugly situation. But the other part of it is it's a civil matter. So you're not going to see a criminal complaint filed that will show up in the FBI Uniform Crime Report or other related stuff on the net now. So it just gets through the whole system when it's a relative that you don't know that title fraud has taken place. When the bad guys do it, lots of times they'll go to the police. The owner will go to the police and say, I don't know where the money is. I don't know who did it. And they're going to say, you know what? You need to get an attorney. The reason being, they aren't going to spend time and money on a case that is not going to go anywhere. And prosecutors don't want to pick a loser like that either, quite frankly. So they tell you to get an attorney as well. The real answer here, quite frankly, is stop worrying about the bad guys. Start worrying about yourself. And the only way to prevent this from happening, quite frankly, is knowing that the transaction is starting before the first check is issued. And that's why I work at Home Title. I've been in law enforcement for over 60 years, quite frankly. And I've been with Home Title Lock for 9 years. And it's been my position with the company and my goal in life to make sure homeowners understand you've got to protect yourself. You know, the cops aren't going to be able to step in between you and the bad guy all the time, every time, ever. So the real answer to you to protect your most important asset, your home and the equity that it represents, is to protect it through having your title monitored 24/7, 365. Now, at Title Lock, we have what we call our $1 million triple lock protection. And we make sure that once you are our subscriber, you don't have to worry about going to the police with some story of some unknown person and some guy on a sandy beach somewhere with drinks with umbrellas and drinking up your money. We will stop that. And we will spend up to $1 million of our money to make sure you get your home back in your name. And that's what it's all about. And if you don't pay attention, believe me, the crooks will know. I mean, I think the last time I was here, I did I call it the Title Lock pop quiz. Do you know what your title looks like? When was the last time you saw your title? And do you know where your title is now? Most people can't answer that. The bad guys can. And so they know that they can steal that title, and you don't know about it, and you aren't watching it, and nobody's telling you what's going on with it. Then it's a free fire zone for them. They can just start taking the money out of your house. Lots of times, once that first loan is negotiated and there's no response from anybody, they'll go get a second, or even a third loan on your same house. In fact, they'll file a form called satisfaction mortgage. It'll look like that other loan has been paid, and they'll get another full loan. So you've got to protect yourself. You can't worry about the crooks, and the cops sometimes don't have an option to take the case and run with it because it's a waste of resources, quite frankly. So the thing you really need to do is look out for yourself. Don't be looking over your shoulder at the crooks. Look at the guy in the mirror and tell him he's got to protect you. He's got to protect your assets. And if you go to HometitleLock.com, we'll do that for you for pennies a day. I mean, it's just so foolish. I mean, I can't think of anybody who has a home that doesn't have $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 in equity these days. It's impossible. And I live in California. The equity out here is, it's nuts. Yeah.
There's a carpe diem here. You can protect yourself. That's the great thing about what Home Title Lock has done for our viewers here too. Amanda, why don't you tell everybody about how we get into the special offer that they have for us today?
Oh, me. I thought you were talking about art. Man. Everybody head to HometitleLock.com and use the promo code JTN. Again, HometitleLock.com. Make sure that your title is still in your name. They're going to do an automatic check for that. So that is the first of your free services. But you're going to get a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection, 24/7 monitoring of your title, alerts. As John said, it's your greatest asset. So cover your assets.
Oh, that was a nice turn of words. Also, just listen to Art Fitzsimons. He knows what he's talking about.
Right.
He's been on the front lines this a long time. What a great honor to have
That's
him on.
right. All right, everybody. We got another block after this. We're going to hash some things out before we go for the night.
Awesome.
Welcome back, everybody. The final segment of the show, and I have a few curveball topics to throw at you, John, that I doubt came across your news desk today because they are not
Okay.
necessarily journalism related, although the
Watch
first one
out.
is a little
I'm
bit.
gonna get tripped up here.
Some keen viewers of the Masters noticed a famous face with a long lens in front of it, and it was a credentialed photographer by the name of Ken Griffey Jr.
Wow, the great one. I mean,
Yeah.
he was something else to watch in baseball. I mean,
Apparently,
amazing.
he has an knack
Two
for
generations
photography.
of greatness, but he's a photographer now, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny how many, I've met a lot of athletes who became artists late in life. They
Mm-hmm.
became photographers late in life. It just reminds you how varied their interests are. You all think, well, they're jocks and they just do jock stuff, but they're all great. Boy, Ken Griffey and his father, two of the classiest and greatest players to ever play the game. I can remember going and seeing Ken Griffey Sr. play for the Big Red Machine in the 70s.
Nice.
And it's an incredible athletic family. And
Yeah.
I always wanted Ken Griffey Jr. to be a Yankee, but I failed.
I'm very sorry. I
We
know
got
that's
Ken
where your
Griffey
heart
Sr.,
lies.
but we didn't get Junior.
Okay, now I have to read this off of my phone because I'm not familiar with this golfer. Let's go back to
All
the
right.
Masters for a moment. U.S. amateur champion Joselle Ballister apparently peed in Rays Creek during the first round of the Masters. And he was asked about it in an interview, which is not the part of the news story. The part of the news story that I find fascinating is that that's allowed and you don't get kicked out of the Masters for that. Isn't it supposed to be a classy sport?
I'm not going to confirm or deny that I ever had an incident on a golf course. If you're asking me to go there, I refuse to give up that information. But sometimes the 19th hole where the bathroom is a long way away, and I'm not condoning it. I just want to give some context to the possibility.
You know, as a woman
Yeah.
who doesn't have the ability to stand
true.
up and
No,
relieve myself, I
I
guess
agree.
the reason I wanted to highlight this story is because I'm a little bitter that I can't do that.
There you go.
Maybe.
There you
Okay,
go.
let's move on to something a little bit more serious. President Trump teasing the fact that he is drafting legislation to pull federal funding from places like my former home, Los Angeles, sanctuary cities, where and something that he put out in his social media post is that it's innocent people in these cities who become victims, and it doesn't help anyone except the criminals.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Listen, Donald Trump's on a roll. He's going to do exactly what middle America needs to be done. He doesn't care about the elitists in media or in politics or in Washington, D.C. And I think these things are going to keep coming. And the longer we go, the longer we're starting to see. There's a court ruling just came out a few minutes ago that a federal judge has cleared the way for President Trump to create a registry of illegal aliens, figure out who they are, get them identified so they can be removed from the country in an orderly and safe way if possible. Now that's common sense, but it had to go to court because someone actually wanted to challenge the notion of doing it in an orderly and safe way. But Donald Trump's had 4 wins at the Supreme Court, 6 or 7 wins at the appellate courts, 3 or 4 or 5 wins at the district courts, and the ones he was losing at got reversed, like Judge Boasberg.
Right.
I don't think he just seems so unencumbered from the official Washington groupthink.
Yeah.
And, I think that's why people are giving him some room to succeed.
On the immigration front, what do you make of the DOJ pulling charges from the East Coast MS-13 leader who was arrested?
Yeah, a little uncomfortable, right? If
Yeah.
you may remember, the Attorney General dragged out all of the top brass of the federal law enforcement for a photo op on this. You want to make sure that if you're going to do the photo op, that it's actually meaningful and it is a real arrest. We don't know why they dropped it. They're very mum on this. They say they're still going to deport him. But listen, as much as we want President Trump and the Justice Department to succeed, we also believe in the rule of law. We believe that you're innocent until proven guilty, and due process is a part of this, even if you're an illegal alien. Maybe this is a reminder that fast isn't always good if you're going to be wrong. It's fast is good when you're right. But, they'll get this right. You get some really smart people at the top of all these departments. Kash Patel, made these documents available. They'll get it right. But we still have a law and order society, and sometimes the right thing gets done when you make a mistake. Best thing to do is, I made a mistake, fix it, move on.
Yep. All right. Quickly before we go, the Russia collusion documents, I have to admit I'm a bit cynical because every time the government puts documents out, it's either on a scale of a bottle rocket with a wet fuse, and then it goes all the way up to a lot of the things that you have revealed, which is a grand finale chandelier firework display. These seemed a little bit closer to the firework display.
Yeah, there's somewhere in the middle. Listen, a lot of this we known, and perhaps the greatest thing is that someone made a promise and kept it, which is rare in Washington. These documents got out. Jim Jordan got them. We got them here. It's good for America to close the chapter on this. They're not all complete. I want to remind people, the most important document I've been talking about, the 4th FISA renewal, the 3rd renewal, 4th FISA application. We think there's some redacted information. If Kash Patel and Pam Bondi release that, That's going to be a 4-alarm fire, but let's see if they do it. But still, we won something today. We got some more transparency. That's an important thing. It's also a reminder, no one really paid a consequence for that entire sham. It's sad.
And read all about it over on justthenews.com in about
It just happened.
two
It's
and a
out.
half. Oh, it's out.
It
All right.
just
Okay,
came out.
it's
We got
there.
it out
And
ahead
then
of
in
the
about an
deadline.
hour, all of the documents will be there. Justthenews.com. Everybody have a great night. See you tomorrow.